extraterrestrial scouts reported that humans walk through haunted locations for fun. Part 1. Scout Commander stood before the Galactic Council's Intelligence Division, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he prepared to deliver the strangest report of his career. The circular chamber held representatives from 12 species, each one watching him with varying degrees of curiosity. He had spent 6 months observing Earth, and what he had discovered all known patterns of intelligent behavior. "Honored council members," began, his translation device converting his clicking speech into the common language. "I must report on human recreational activities that violate every standard protocol for psychological safety and self-preservation." Counselor Ha of the Empathic Collective leaned forward, her pale blue skin shimmering with concern. Her species could sense emotions and psychic impressions from great distances, a useful trait but one that came with severe limitations. "Please elaborate, Scout Commander." Activated the holographic display. Images of Earth locations filled the air above the council floor, crumbling buildings with broken windows, dark tunnels stretching into mountainsides, old structures with peeling paint and collapsed roofs. To most species in the galaxy, these images alone would trigger discomfort. But what came next made several council members shift uneasily in their seats. "These locations are what humans call haunted," explained. "They are sites where death occurred, often violently and in large numbers. They contain psychic residue, emotional imprints, and dimensional weak points. By all established scientific understanding, these places should be avoided. Every spacefaring species we have encountered has developed cultural taboos against approaching such sites." He paused, letting that information settle before continuing. "Humans seek them out for entertainment." The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. OK of the Dominion, whose species possessed the most advanced danger prediction neurology in known space, stood abruptly. His scaled skin flushed dark red, a sign of extreme agitation. "That cannot be accurate. No species survives to develop space travel by deliberately exposing themselves to psychic hazards." "I assure you the data is," said. He changed the holographic display to show video footage. A group of humans walked through a decrepit building, carrying lights and strange electronic devices. They were smiling. Some were laughing. One human female was eating something from a colorful wrapper while she walked past a room where, according to scans, 17 individuals had died violently 200 years prior. "This is a ghost tour," continued. "Humans pay currency to enter these locations. There is an entire industry built around this activity. These tours are considered family entertainment." Counselor Ha had gone completely still, her empathic senses clearly overwhelmed by even watching the recording. "I can feel the echoes from here, through the recording itself. That place screams with accumulated anguish. How are they not fleeing?" "They appear to find it exciting," replied. He showed more footage. Humans in another location, this one an abandoned asylum where the psychic readings were even worse. The humans were using their devices, asking questions into empty rooms. "Is anyone here?" one human called out. "Can you give us a sign?" Several council members made sounds of horror. To deliberately invite interaction with death echoes was considered suicidal by galactic standards. Such entities, when they existed, fed on fear and attention. Provoking them was asking for possession, madness, or worse. "There is more," said grimly. He showed footage of humans entering an underground tunnel system. This location was a mining operation where 342 humans died in a collapse. The dimensional barriers there are extremely thin. My instruments detected at least 4 separate entities of malevolent origin. The humans brought cameras and recording devices. They stayed for 3 hours. The video showed the humans reacting to cold spots and strange sounds. Their heart rates increased. Their breathing became rapid. Every biological sign indicated they knew something was wrong. Yet they continued forward, driven by what appeared to be curiosity, and a desire to document whatever they encountered. "I do not understand," said Ambassador of the Harmonious Collective. His species communicated through shared consciousness and found the concept of individual humans deliberately traumatizing themselves particularly baffling. "Are humans unable to sense these dangers? Do they lack the neural structures to perceive psychic phenomena?" "That was my initial hypothesis," admitted. "However, further observation proved otherwise. Humans clearly sense these phenomena. They report feeling watched, experiencing temperature drops and sensing presences. They have entire linguistic categories for these experiences: ghosts, spirits, demons, poltergeists. They know these things exist." He pulled up more data. "They have created technology specifically to detect these phenomena, devices that measure electromagnetic fluctuations, temperature variations, and even alleged spirit voices. They have developed an entire classification system for different types of hauntings. Humans are not ignorant of the danger. They are aware and proceed anyway." The council sat in stunned silence. Counselor Ha finally spoke, her voice trembling. "My people abandoned an entire colony world because a single building developed a death echo after a tragic accident. We would rather lose billions in infrastructure than risk exposure to such forces. The psychological damage would destroy us. How can humans withstand this?" "More troubling still," said, "is what they do when they encounter actual phenomena." He showed footage from a human-worn camera. The human was in a dark basement alone. Suddenly, a door slammed shut with tremendous force. The human jumped, clearly startled. Their heart rate spiked dramatically. Then the human laughed nervously and called out, "Okay, that was a good one. Can you do it again?" Multiple council members stood in alarm. Ha looked physically ill. "They encourage it, they ask for more." "Consistently," confirmed. "Humans have a concept called dares. They challenge each other to enter these locations, to spend nights in the most haunted rooms, to provoke responses from entities. They compete over who can endure the most frightening experience. Those who refuse are often socially mocked." He pulled up more examples. Television programs where humans investigated haunted locations, books written about famous hauntings, websites dedicated to sharing encounters with the supernatural, an entire subculture devoted to seeking out these experiences. "Furthermore," continued, "humans have industrialized fear itself. They create artificial haunted attractions called haunted houses, where they pay actors to frighten them. They produce entertainment called horror movies, designed specifically to trigger fear responses. They read scary stories to their offspring before sleep." OK was packing now, his danger prediction systems clearly in distress just from the briefing. "This is madness. This is not the behavior of a stable species. We should classify humans as psychologically unfit for contact." "That is one option," agreed. "However, there is a complication. Our analysis suggests humans will achieve faster-than-light travel within the next 20 to 30 years. Contact is inevitable. We must establish protocols." "But how?" Ha asked helplessly. "How does one negotiate with a species that recreationally engages in activities that would destroy any of our civilizations? What if they discover our sacred memorial sites? What if they want to ghost hunt them?" The council chamber fell silent at that horrifying thought. Every species maintained locations that were considered sacred specifically because they were too traumatic to approach. Sites of great tragedies, places where psychic wounds in reality itself still bled. These places were quarantined, monitored, and absolutely forbidden to enter. The idea of humans showing up with cameras and electronic equipment, asking the accumulated dead to give them a sign, was almost too terrible to contemplate. "I propose we send a follow-up team," said. "One that can observe humans more closely in these situations. We need to understand whether this behavior represents confidence, ignorance, or something else entirely. We need specialists who can analyze what happens to humans in these environments. I volunteer, said Dr. Mora, the human interaction specialist. She was a small being from the academic consortium, her large eyes suggesting a species adapted for intensive study. I have been analyzing human cultural evolution. I believe there may be an explanation we are missing. After considerable debate, the council agreed. A team would be assembled. I, a hand empath who could sense psychic phenomena directly. OK, with his advanced danger assessment biology. And Dr. Mora to observe human behavior and psychology. They would embed themselves among humans, attend these ghost tours, and try to understand what drove humanity to seek out the very things that all other intelligent species fled from. As the council session ended and beings filed out, still shaken by what they had learned, Counselor Ha approached privately. "Do you truly believe they are not afraid?" she asked quietly. Considered the question carefully. "I believe they are terrified," he said. "I have watched their faces, monitored their biological responses. They feel the fear. They simply choose to continue anyway. That is what I find most disturbing of all." Part 2. The follow-up team arrived on Earth 3 weeks later, using advanced holographic disguises to blend in with the local population. I found the planet overwhelming from the moment they entered the atmosphere. Emotions from billions of humans washed over her in waves. Joy, anger, fear, love, hatred, all mixing together in a psychic symphony that no hand settlement would ever tolerate. "How do they function like this?" she whispered to Dr. Mora as they walked through a crowded city street. "The emotional noise is deafening." Dr. Mora made a note on her data pad. "Humans appear to lack your species' sensitivity to emotional resonance. They exist in this chaos without perceiving it the way you do. It may make them more resilient to psychic phenomena in general." OK was having his own difficulties. His danger prediction implants, normally so reliable, were triggering constantly. Cars moving at high speeds. Humans eating foods that his analysis suggested were barely safe for consumption. Construction sites where workers performed tasks at dangerous heights with minimal safety equipment. Everywhere he looked, humans were taking small risks, accepting minor dangers as part of daily life. "This entire species operates at what we would consider an unacceptable threat level," he muttered. "They have normalized danger." Their first official ghost tour was scheduled for that evening at an old prison. The structure had operated for over 100 years before being closed, and during that time, 63 executions had taken place within its walls. Countless inmates had died there of disease, violence, and despair. When I looked at the building from 2 blocks away, she felt physically ill. "I cannot do this," she said, stopping in her tracks. "The psychic residue is visible to me even from here. It is like a dark cloud hanging over the structure. There is anger there, pain, and something else, something aware and hungry." "The tour group is already gathering," Dr. Mora said gently. "We must observe them to understand." I forced herself forward, every step requiring tremendous willpower. As they approached the prison entrance, she saw the human tour group, 20 people, ranging from young adults to an elderly couple. They were chatting cheerfully, taking photographs of the exterior, checking their electronic devices. One young man was drinking from a large cup with a straw, completely relaxed. The tour guide, a middle-aged human female, greeted them with a wide smile. "Welcome, everyone. I'm Sarah, and I'll be your guide tonight through the most haunted prison in the state. We've got a great night planned. The spirits have been very active lately." She said this as if it were a positive thing. OK's implants began flashing warning indicators across his vision. Category 5 psychic hazard. Recommend immediate evacuation. Threat level, severe. He gritted his teeth and stayed with the group, committed to the mission. As they entered the prison, I almost collapsed. The weight of accumulated suffering was crushing. She could feel echoes of hundreds of souls who had died here, their final moments of fear and pain imprinted on the very walls. and beneath it all something else. A presence that was not a simple echo, something that had grown in this place, feeding on all that misery, becoming something darker and more intentional. The humans walked past cells with rusted bars, their footsteps echoing on concrete floors. Sarah told them stories about inmates who had died violently, about executions gone wrong, about riots and murders. She pointed to specific cells and said, "This is where we get the most activity. People report being touched, having their clothes pulled, hearing voices." One of the human tourists, a young woman, looked excited rather than frightened. "Has anyone ever been hurt?" "A few people have reported scratches," Sarah said, showing her own arm where 3 faint marks were visible. "These appeared after I spent a night here for our overnight investigation special." The humans leaned in to look at the marks with interest and excitement. I wanted to scream at them to run, to flee this terrible place, but she held her composure and observed. They entered the execution chamber. I felt her legs give out and had to lean against the wall. The psychic impression here was so strong she could almost see the ghosts herself, though she lacked that particular gift. She could feel their terror, their pleading, their anger at unjust deaths, and that dark presence was stronger here, wrapping around the tour group like invisible tendrils. The humans were taking photographs. "Does anyone have any questions they want to ask?" Sarah said. "Sometimes the spirits respond if you speak to them directly." A teenage human boy called out, "Is anyone here with us? Can you give us a sign?" Okay's danger sensor screamed at him. Every instinct told him to grab the young human and pull him to safety. In culture, such a challenge to unknown entities would result in immediate intervention by any adult present. It was considered a form of child endangerment. But the adult humans present were smiling, watching expectantly. Then it happened. The heavy metal door to the chamber slammed shut with a tremendous bang that echoed through the stone room. The humans jumped, several crying out in surprise. Heart rates spiked across the group. And then within seconds they began to laugh. Nervous laughter, yes, but laughter nonetheless. The teenage boy who had asked for a sign actually pumped his fist in excitement. "Did you see that? Did everyone see that?" "That was incredible," another human exclaimed. They were thrilled. They were happy it had happened. Some were already checking their cameras to see if they had captured the moment on video. I could feel that the dark presence was confused. It had expected fear, worship, or flight. Instead, these creatures were celebrating, recording it, asking for more. The tour continued through cell blocks and isolation chambers. In each location, the humans used their electronic devices, asking questions, hopping for responses. When they detected temperature drops or electromagnetic fluctuations, they became more excited rather than more cautious. Dr. Mora took extensive notes, documenting every interaction. They observed humans investigating cold spots by walking directly into them, watching them use infrared cameras to search for apparitions, listening to them play back audio recordings, hopping to hear disembodied voices. The disconnect between appropriate survival behavior and actual human behavior was staggering. After the tour ended, the team retreated to their observation post. I immediately took medication to calm her overwhelmed empathic senses. Okay ran diagnostics on his implants, worried they had been damaged by the constant alarm state. "I do not understand what we witnessed," Okay said. "They perceived the danger. Their biological responses confirmed it, yet they proceeded as if they were at a recreational event, which I suppose they believed they were." "It is worse than we thought," I added, her voice shaky. "That presence in the execution chamber was aware. It was attempting to frighten them to feed on their fear. But when they responded with excitement instead of terror, it seemed almost frustrated. I have never felt anything like it." Dr. Mora was reviewing her notes. "I want to observe a more extreme example. There are humans who do not simply take tour. They break into abandoned locations illegally, seeking more intense experiences. And there are commercial attractions designed to terrify people using actors and special effects. More extreme than what we just experienced? I asked in horror. Much more, Dr. Mora confirmed. Over the following weeks, they observed humans in various haunted locations. An abandoned hospital where I could barely maintain consciousness due to the psychic trauma embedded in every room. A cemetery where OK's sensors detected dimensional thin spots that should have been marked as galactic hazards. A private home where a family lived despite regular poltergeist activity, treating it as a mere inconvenience. They attended what humans called an extreme haunted house attraction. This was a commercial venue where humans paid to be chased by actors, subjected to simulated torture scenarios, and exposed to intense psychological horror. It came with a safety word that participants could use to exit if it became too much. 2 members of the alien observation team had to be evacuated within the first 10 minutes, unable to cope with the artificial fear environment. The humans, meanwhile, screamed and laughed in equal measure, clearly terrified but equally clearly enjoying themselves. They have industrialized trauma, OK observed with something like awe. They have created fear as a commodity and found willing consumers. But the most revealing observation came during their final investigation. Dr. Mora had identified a group of teenage humans planning to break into an abandoned hospital that night. This hospital was not a tourist attraction. It was genuinely dangerous, structurally unstable, and according to local human legends, deeply haunted. The team followed the teenagers as they cut through a fence and entered the decaying building. I immediately sensed that this place was different from the tour locations. Something truly malevolent resided here. Something that had been feeding on the psychic residue of death and suffering for decades, growing stronger and more conscious. The teenagers moved through dark hallways with only flashlights to guide them. They were trying to act brave, but the team could sense their genuine fear. This was not entertainment to them. This was a test of courage, a dare among friends. They entered what had once been the psychiatric ward. I grabbed Dr. Mora's arm. We must stop this. There is something here, something dangerous. It is aware of them. It is hungry. Before Dr. Mora could respond, the malevolent presence made itself known. The temperature dropped precipitously. Shadows moved against the walls without corresponding physical sources. A low, grinding sound came from everywhere and nowhere. The teenagers froze. Their fear was now genuine and overwhelming. This was beyond what they had expected. Then one of the humans, a young female, did something that shocked everyone present. She got angry. "Stop trying to scare us," she yelled into the darkness. "We're not afraid of you." This was, objectively, a lie. The team could sense her terror, but she was choosing to respond with anger instead of flight. Another teenager picked up a piece of broken tile and threw it in the direction of a moving shadow. "Yeah, you're not that scary." The malevolent presence seemed to pause, genuinely confused. In all its years of feeding on fear, it had never encountered prey that insulted it, that threw objects at it, that responded to supernatural terror with adolescent defiance. The moment stretched out. Then, perhaps deciding these particular humans were not worth the effort, the presence retreated. The temperature returned to normal. The shadows stilled. The teenagers stood in silence for a moment, then erupted in nervous laughter and celebration. They had faced something genuinely frightening and responded by mocking it. They felt victorious. The alien team watched from concealment, processing what they had witnessed. "They override their survival instincts deliberately," Dr. Mora said softly. "They feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then choose to push forward anyway. It is not that they are unafraid. It is that they refuse to let fear control them." OK shook his head slowly. "My people would call this madness, but I am beginning to wonder if it might be something else." "Courage," I whispered. "Terrible, reckless courage." Part 3. The team's report to the Galactic Council was met with even more alarm than initial findings. Seeing the data was one thing. Experiencing human behavior in haunted locations firsthand had shaken all three observers in different ways. I stood before the council, still visibly affected by her time on Earth. I have walked through places that should not exist, she said. Places where the barrier between life and death is so thin that psychic echoes take on partial consciousness. Places where malevolent entities actively hunt for victims. And humans enter these locations willingly, sometimes bringing their offspring. She brought up footage from their observations. The council members watched in uncomfortable silence as humans laughed in the face of genuine supernatural phenomena, provoked spirits for entertainment, and treated potentially deadly situations as recreational activities. What is most disturbing, I continued, is that they are not immune to these forces. They feel the fear. Their bodies react appropriately to danger, but they have developed a cultural framework that treats this fear as something to be conquered rather than obeyed. OK presented his analysis next. From a threat assessment perspective, humans should not have survived to develop civilization. Their planet is what we would classify as a Class 7 death world. Extreme weather, tectonic instability, dangerous megafauna, diseases, and countless other hazards. Yet they not only survived but thrived by developing a psychology that treats danger as a challenge to overcome. He pulled up comparative data. Every species in the Galactic Council evolved on worlds with significantly lower threat levels. We developed intelligence to avoid danger. Humans developed intelligence to confront danger. They are persistent hunters who evolved to chase prey until it died of exhaustion. They are tool users who learn to kill animals much larger and stronger than themselves. They are social creatures who bond through shared struggle. The implications hung in the air. Humans had not developed on a safe world and learned caution. They had developed on a nightmare world and learned defiance. Several council members began speaking at once, expressing concerns about allowing such an unpredictable species into the galactic community. What if they decided to explore quarantine zones? What if they wanted to ghost hunt on the sacred memorial worlds? What if their recklessness endangered other species? Ambassador of the Harmonious Collective spoke up, his consciousness rippling with worry. We must consider containment protocols. Perhaps we can establish Earth as a protected zone, preventing them from achieving faster-than-light travel until they develop more appropriate psychological frameworks. That would violate the Prime Development Directive, Dr. Mora said quietly. She had been silent until now, reviewing her data. We cannot interfere with a species' natural technological progression unless they pose a direct threat to others. And despite their behavior, humans have not actually demonstrated aggression toward other sapient species. Because they have not encountered any yet, Counselor Ha pointed out. What happens when they do? Dr. Mora stood, requesting permission to present her full analysis. The council granted it, though several members looked skeptical. I believe we have been interpreting human behavior through our own cultural frameworks, Dr. Mora began. We see their willingness to enter haunted locations as recklessness because that is how it would manifest in our species. But humans are not reckless. They are adaptive. She brought up historical data on human development. Humans evolved without any knowledge of the galactic community. They had no ancient civilizations to teach them about psychic phenomena, no framework for understanding dimensional weak points or death echoes. They encountered these things naturally, without guidance, and developed their own explanations. Ghosts, spirits, the supernatural. And rather than let these mysteries paralyze them with fear, they studied them. The holographic display showed human history, ancient rituals to appease spirits, religious frameworks to explain death and the afterlife, scientific investigations into paranormal phenomena, ghost hunting equipment and methodologies. Humans did not have the luxury of avoiding haunted locations, Dr. Mora continued. Their planet is relatively small, and they needed to use all available land. So they developed cultures that acknowledged these phenomena but did not let them control human expansion. They built homes on burial grounds. They repurposed buildings where tragedies occurred. They learned to coexist with the supernatural because they had no choice. She pulled up more recent data. Modern humans have largely forgotten the genuine dangers because they have become so good at managing them. Ghost tour are entertainment because humans have so thoroughly conquered their fear of death echoes that they no longer recognize them as threats. This is not ignorance. This is confidence born from thousands of years of refusing to be intimidated. OK spoke up, his tone thoughtful. You are suggesting that human behavior in haunted locations is not aberrant. It is an extension of their normal survival strategy. Exactly, Dr. Mora confirmed. When a human encounters something frightening and unknown, their instinct is not to flee. It is to study it, understand it, and ultimately control it. They do this with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and yes, supernatural phenomena. They treat ghosts the way they treat every other obstacle in their environment, as a problem to be solved. She pulled up the footage of the teenagers confronting the malevolent entity in the abandoned hospital. Watch this moment carefully. These young humans are genuinely terrified, but they respond to that terror by getting angry at the source. They throw objects at it. They insult it. This is not stupidity. This is a species that learned ago that predators can be driven off by making yourself look bigger, louder, and more trouble than you are worth. The council chamber was silent as they processed this information. There is another factor to consider, Dr. Mora said. Humans have no memory of losing worlds to psychic phenomena. We do. The Hands abandoned a colony rather than face a single death echo. The lost an entire outpost when a dimensional rift opened and drove the population mad. Every species here has trauma related to these forces. We have learned fear through terrible loss. She paused, letting that sink in. Humans have no such trauma. They have ghost stories and legends, but they have never lost a war to the supernatural. They have never abandoned a city because it was haunted. They have, in their own crude way, achieved something we have not. They have refused to let death echoes and psychic phenomena limit their expansion or control their behavior. Counselor Ha spoke up, her voice uncertain. You are saying we should admire this behavior. I am saying we should understand it, Dr. Mora replied, and perhaps learn from it. The galaxy contains countless hazardous zones that we avoid because of psychic phenomena. Space stations abandoned after traumatic events. Planets quarantined because of dimensional instabilities. Resources we cannot access because we are too frightened to approach them. She pulled up a list that made several council members shift uncomfortably. Dozens of locations, each one written off as too dangerous to salvage or explore. What if we did not have to fear these places? Dr. Mora asked. What if we had allies who could enter them without psychological damage, who could investigate, document, and perhaps even cleanse them? The chamber erupted in debate. Some council members argued this was too dangerous, that encouraging humans would only lead to disaster. Others saw the potential benefits but worried about the ethical implications of exposing humans to dangers they did not fully understand. Finally, who had been listening carefully spoke up. There is one way to know for certain if Dr. Mora's theory is correct. We initiate first contact. We explain to humans what these phenomena actually are, provide them with proper context and scientific understanding. Then we observe how they respond. And if they decide to start ghost hunting across the galaxy? Ha asked. Then we establish boundaries and guidelines, replied. But we do so from a position of communication rather than fear. We treat them as partners who have a unique skill set, not as children who need protection from themselves. After hours of debate, the council reached a decision. They would initiate first contact with Earth, but they would do so carefully. Rather than approaching human governments, they would make contact with a specific group, experienced paranormal investigators who had been documenting supernatural phenomena for years. The contact team arrived at a small building in a human city where a group of ghost hunters maintained their office. The team consisted of Dr. Mora and a full diplomatic delegation. They had debated how to make their presence known without causing panic. In the end, they simply knocked on the door. The human who answered was a middle-aged man named David, one of the lead investigators. He stared at the alien standing in his doorway for several seconds, his brain clearly struggling to process what he was seeing. David said, "Is this for a show? Are you guys actors?" "We are representatives of the Galactic Council," said through his translator. "We are not from Earth. We are here to make first contact with your species, and we chose your organization specifically because of your experience with paranormal phenomena." David called for his teammates. Within minutes, a group of 5 humans were sitting in their office with a delegation of aliens, trying to absorb the reality of the situation. "So," David finally said, "aliens are real, and you came to us because we investigate ghosts." "Correct," Dr. Mora said. "We have been observing your species for some time. Your willingness to enter locations with strong psychic phenomena is unique among intelligent species. We need to understand it better." One of the other humans, a woman named Lisa, laughed nervously. "You're saying ghosts are real, like actually real. We've been trying to prove that for 20 years. "They are real," confirmed. "What you call ghosts are death echoes, emotional imprints, and occasionally entities that feed on psychic energy. They are dangerous. Most species in the galaxy avoid them at all costs, but you seek them out." The humans looked at each other, a mixture of vindication and excitement on their faces. "Can you show us your research?" David asked eagerly. "We have so many questions. Is electromagnetic field detection actually effective? What about EVP recordings? Do different types of spirits require different investigation methods?" The alien delegation exchanged glances. This was exactly the response Dr. Mora had predicted, but experiencing it firsthand was still jarring. "You are not afraid?" Ha asked. "We have just told you that the phenomena you investigate are genuinely dangerous." "Oh, we're definitely a little scared," Lisa admitted. "But we're also incredibly excited. Do you have any idea how long we've been trying to get concrete evidence? And you're telling us you have actual scientific data." Over the next several hours, the two groups exchanged information. The humans showed their investigation techniques, explained their theories, and asked countless questions. The aliens provided scientific context, explained the real nature of psychic phenomena, and gradually came to realize that Dr. Mora had been absolutely correct. Humans were not reckless. They were curious. When given proper information, they became more interested, not less. When told something was dangerous, they immediately started problem-solving how to investigate it safely. As the session was ending, made one thing clear. As we begin formal integration of Earth into the galactic community, there will be rules. There are sacred sites maintained by other species, memorial worlds, quarantined zones. You cannot simply arrive and begin ghost hunting wherever you please. "Of course," David agreed, "we would respect other cultures' sacred spaces, but—" "But," Dr. Mora prompted. "Well, you mentioned space stations that were abandoned because of psychic phenomena, and planets that are quarantined. If those places aren't sacred to anyone, would it be possible for us to investigate them? With proper training and safety protocols, of course." The aliens looked at each other. They had expected this question, but hearing it still sent a chill through the delegation. "We will consider it," said carefully. As the alien delegation departed, they heard the humans already making excited plans, discussing equipment upgrades, and debating which galactic haunted location they most wanted to investigate first. Back on the ship, filed his updated report to the council. He changed humanity's classification from unknown dangerous to chaotic useful, and added extensive notes about potential cooperation on psychic phenomena research. 3 months later, the first joint human-alien investigation team entered an abandoned space station that had been quarantined for 800 years. The station had been the site of a terrible disaster, and the death echoes there were so strong that no galactic species had been willing to approach it. The human team, equipped with both their own ghost hunting equipment and alien psychic sensors, spent 3 days documenting everything. They encountered multiple entities, experienced intense paranormal activity, and emerged with comprehensive data about the phenomena. More importantly, they emerged with something else, a methodology for cleansing the station of psychic residue. Within a year, the station was reopened for use. The Galactic Council watched this development with a mixture of awe and concern. Humans had done in months what no other species had managed in centuries. They had faced death echoes and malevolent entities not with fear, but with scientific curiosity and stubborn determination. Counselor Ha, watching footage of human ghost hunters explaining their findings to galactic researchers, finally understood what made humans unique. "They do not walk through haunted locations despite the fear," she said quietly. "They do it because they refuse to let anything, even death itself, tell them where they cannot go." And across the galaxy, as word spread about Earth's integration into the galactic community, other species began to whisper about the humans who hunted ghosts for fun, who laughed at death echoes, and who would probably try to investigate the legendary void rift of Al if given half a chance. The humans, for their part, were already planning exactly that.